Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back to science. All right, guys, in this section, we're going to be looking at 3.6 and we're going to be looking at stem cells. So, what is a stem cell? A stem cell is going to be a type of cell that can become other types of cells. And so, it's going to be the focal point of cell essentially going from one cell to many types of cells. And even as an adult, you making cells that can become different kinds of cells. Let's say your different types of white blood cells as we look there. So a stem cell can divide and form two new stem cells. That's great. Stem cells can also form a stem cell and a progenitor cell. And stem cells can also differentiate, as we talked about in like our first section, and become specialized. All right, so progenitor cells. So these are more specialized and they are a committed cell. They are a certain cell line. They can become one of many different things, but not all things. That's a progenitor cell. Your cells start out as a stem cell that is called totipotent. And totipotent stem cells can become any type of cell, totally any kind of cell. And I like the tot of totally as a way to remember of totipotents can become totally any kind of cell. So when a sperm and an egg fertilize, forming that zygote, it's going to then go through many cell divisions, forming a 16-cell mass that we're going to call the morula. The morula is then going to develop a hollow cavity and form the inner cell mass. The inner cell mass, that's going to become eventually the baby. And that's all pre-embryonic, but then it's going to hit the point of being an embryo. And an embryo up to the point of 10 weeks old, still in utero, that's going to be the embryo stage. And you're going to see these totipotent cells that are going to now become the process of pluripotent. What is pluripotent? Pluripotent, one cell can become like one of these 8 different types. That's going to be closer to like a description of pluripotent. Where a totipotent, one cell become any of the 200 types of cells we have. But totipotent and pluripotent, the difference is how many things they can differentiate into. And when you have pluripotent, early in development, you have pluripotent cells. Later in development, you're going to have pluripotent. So totipotent is the first cells, and then we're going to phase into pluripotent. So there's a limited number of cells, a plural, that's how I think of it in my mind, of the number of cells that can become. These are the progenitor cells that we're talking about. Eventually, when you're an adult, you have cells that are called multipotent, and at birth, from birth on, you're going to have these multipotent cells that are going to be, it can become specialized cell types. They're not all differentiated, but there's limited types of cells that it can become. So here is some cell differentiation just to show. Here is the totipotent fertilized egg, the zygote, and you can see the stem cells. And eventually it's going to get to the point of being a progenitor cell where it can become pluripotent, opposed to being totipotent like this. Once again, totipotent can become totally any cell. Pluripotent, still embryonic development, has a limited number of cells that can come from each type of pluripotent cell. So why we care? Research. Cells that can become undifferentiated undifferentiated cells that can become differentiated means that we can replace things that used to be irreplaceable. Like when you have a damage to the structure, it's over and you never get that back. Stem cell research has promise of maybe correcting some of these what were just fixed, like we can't fix that. Our body can't. But now with stem cells, we can introduce cells that can become the broken cell type. So sources of stem cells include things like donor stem cells. At birth, oftentimes, or probably before, do you want to save any of the cord blood? Why would you save cord blood? Because it has stem cells in it. And you may think the baby's healthy, it's fine. Right. But you can cryogenically freeze that and use that at a later date if there was a problem. And so saving cord cells, that gives you an opportunity for potentially fixing something that used to be unfixable. So as an adult, we have stem cells in our bone marrow. Our bone marrow makes our white blood cells and our red blood cells. We'll eventually talk about the exact names of the cells that do that and how you get there. But this process, they become this multipotent cells that can become a multiple different things. Like one of these cells can become one of the 5 different kinds of white blood cells, or it could be a red blood cell, or what will megakaryocyte, which will eventually be the thrombocyte, the platelet. But these structures that are within all come from these ultimately the stem cells. So we too have stem cells, but just not as many, and they're pretty defined into a range. If we need one of those, they're the right choice. However, these pluripotent cells can become even more things, and totipotent, that's the perfect option, and they can become anything. All right, guys, this finishes this subsection. We'll be back momentarily.